Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. Sometimes you stumble across something intriguing online and you just got to dig deeper. Well, that's what we're doing today.
I love those rabbit holes. You never know what you'll find.
Right. So a listener sent in this blog post that really got us thinking. It's called Notes on Photography, Part 180, from kianmeng.org, published just today, January 13th, 2025.
Okay, I'm familiar with that blog. It covers a pretty eclectic mix of topics, right?
Yeah, the author seems to be into everything from tech to gardening,
Yeah.
even music. But this particular post is all about photography. The author found a collection of vintage film cameras at an antique market, and it sparked this whole debate about film versus digital.
Ah, the age-old dilemma.
Exactly. And it's not just about nostalgia. There are real practical considerations, too. The author ultimately decides to stick with digital and lists three main reasons.
Hit me with them.
Okay, so number one, the ongoing cost of film.
Yeah, that's a big one. Film ain't cheap these days.
Nope. You got the film itself, then developing and potentially scanning if you want digital copies.
Yeah,
It all adds up.
for sure. And it's not always predictable either. Like, you might get a rollback from the lab and a bunch of shots are messed up. Or you realize you didn't quite nail the exposure, so you end up spending even more to get the results you want.
Ugh, tell me about it. I've had my fair share of film photography fails.
It's part of the process, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely adds to the expense.
Okay, so cost is a major factor. What's the author's second point?
I'm curious too. Lay it on me.
Well, the author argues that digital cameras can now do a pretty decent job of mimicking the film look.
That's interesting. There are definitely a lot of tools and techniques out there now that let you replicate those classic film aesthetics.
Right, grain filters or specific color grading presets. You can even emulate the look of certain film stocks.
Technology has come a long way. It's pretty impressive what you can achieve with digital these days.
So is the author saying that film is obsolete then? Like, is there no point in even bothering with it anymore?
Well, they do make an interesting point about collectors. For some people, the value of film cameras isn't really about the practicality of shooting film. It's more about the objects themselves.
I can see that. Those vintage cameras are beautiful pieces of craftsmanship and history.
Right, they're like little time capsules. And for collectors, that connection to the past might outweigh the cost-benefit analysis of actually using them.
So maybe it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Yeah.
Different people have different motivations for being drawn to film.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating dynamic. And it's something we see in other areas, too, like
Yeah.
the resurgence of vinyl records or vintage clothing.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a renewed appreciation for analog processes these days. People are looking for something tangible, something with a story behind it.
I think it's a reaction to our increasingly digital world. We're constantly bombarded with information and technology. And sometimes it's nice to slow down and appreciate something that feels more authentic, more hands-on.
It's like a craving for a deeper connection to the things we create and consume.
Precisely. And maybe that's part of what's driving the continued interest in film photography as well. It offers a different kind of experience, a different way of connecting with the world.
Okay, so we've talked about cost and the ability of digital to mimic the film aesthetic. What's the author's final argument for sticking with digital?
I'm all ears.
They highlight the flexibility of digital post-processing.
Ah, yes, the power of editing.
Yeah, you can adjust exposure, color balance, sharpness.
Right.
You can even remove unwanted elements from your photos. The possibilities are pretty much endless.
It's true. Digital gives you a level of control that you just don't have with film. And for some photographers, that's a huge advantage.
I mean, I can definitely appreciate the convenience of being able to tweak things on the fly, but I also wonder if all that control sometimes takes away from the art of getting it right in camera.
Now, that's an intriguing thought, and I think it's something we should explore further,
Absolutely.
because it touches on the heart of what makes each medium unique and the different creative approaches they inspire.
I'm game. Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
I'm really intrigued by this idea that the choice between film and digital might be about more than just technical specs.
Me too. It's about the whole experience, the feel of it.
Right. Like you were saying earlier about analog trends in general.
Yeah.
It's that desire for something more tangible, more hands-on.
Exactly, and I think that's where the comparison to the author's other interests comes in, like gardening, for instance.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this. Gardening is all about patience and nurturing. You can't just rush the process.
Right. It takes time and care, and there's a certain satisfaction in seeing something grow and flourish at its own pace.
It does kind of remind me of film photography in a way.
Yeah.
That sense of delayed gratification. You have to trust the process and wait to see how things turn out.
Exactly. And with film, there's also a physicality to the experience. You're loading the film, winding the lever, feeling the weight of the camera in your
Yeah,
hands.
it's definitely a more mindful way of shooting.
Whereas digital is so instantaneous. You snap the photo and boom, it's right there on the screen.
True. You can zoom in, check the focus, delete it, and try again. It's very immediate and forgiving.
And that can be incredibly liberating. You know, it frees you up to experiment, to capture those fleeting moments.
Yeah. Yeah, but do you ever worry that that immediacy can lead to a sort of detachment?
You mean like you're not as invested in each individual shot?
Yeah, like it's so easy to just fire off a bunch of photos without really thinking about what you're trying to capture.
That's a valid point.
Hmm.
I think there's definitely a temptation to overshoot with digital, to rely on quantity over quality.
It's like that old saying, film makes you a better photographer because you can't afford to waste a shot.
Haha, there's some truth to that. When you only have 24 or 36 exposures on a roll, you become much more intentional with each one. You really have to think about your composition, your exposure, your timing.
It forces you to slow down and be present in the moment.
Exactly. And that presence can translate into more powerful images, you know? You remember the feeling of taking that photo, the anticipation of seeing how it turned out?
Oh man, speaking of anticipation, I remember when I first started learning about photography, we used to develop our own film in a darkroom.
Oh, wow, the good old days.
Right. It was magical, watching the image slowly appear in the developer tray, like alchemy.
There's nothing quite like it. It's such a tangible process.
But let's be real, darkroom printing is a pretty time-consuming process. Not exactly practical for everyone these days.
True. It requires a certain level of dedication.
And that's where digital shines. You know, it's so convenient. You can share your images, instantly experiment with different editing techniques.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless. It's opened up a whole new world for photographers.
But is there a risk of losing something in that transition to digital? Like something about the tangibility, the craft, the history of film?
It's a question worth asking. I think there's a certain romanticism associated with film, the grain, the colors, those imperfections that give it character.
It's like those vintage cameras we were talking about earlier. They're not just tools, they're works of art with their own stories to tell.
Right. Absolutely. And that sense of history resonates with a lot of people. It's a connection to a different era, a slower pace of life.
So how do we reconcile these seemingly opposing forces then? The nostalgia and craft of film versus the speed and convenience of digital.
I don't think it's about choosing one over the other. It's about recognizing the value of both and finding ways to integrate them into your own photographic journey.
I love that. It's not a competition, it's a conversation.
Exactly. And speaking of conversations, we were talking earlier about community. How do you think that plays into this whole film versus digital debate?
Yeah, community, that's an interesting angle. I hadn't really considered that before.
It's one of those things that often gets overlooked, but it can really shape your experience as a photographer.
So what are we talking about here? Like, are there separate clubs for film and digital shooters?
Not necessarily clubs, but the communities definitely have distinct vibes. You know, think about it. The film photography world is all about shared knowledge, hands-on experience.
Okay, I'm picturing like darkroom gatherings, people exchanging tips on developing techniques.
Exactly. Or workshops focused on specific film stocks or printing methods. There's a real sense of apprenticeship passing down skills from one generation to the next.
It sounds kind of like a guild. You know, those old school groups where you had to apprentice for years to learn the craft.
There's definitely that element of tradition and mentorship, and I think that creates a strong sense of camaraderie among film photographers.
Yeah.
It's not just about the end product, but the whole journey of getting there.
Makes sense. So what about the digital photography community? I imagine things are a bit different there.
For sure, with digital, it's much more online driven. You know, platforms like Instagram, Flickr photography blogs have become the main hubs for sharing work, connecting with other photographers.
Yeah, that makes sense given how technology has basically erased geographical boundaries. You can connect with people from all over the world.
Exactly. It's created this vast and diverse network of photographers.
Which is amazing. But I do wonder if something gets lost when interactions are primarily virtual. Like, don't you miss those face-to-face gatherings, those opportunities for direct mentorship?
There's definitely something special about that in-person energy, but the online community has its own advantages. You know, it's incredibly accessible. It breaks down barriers for people who might not have access to those physical spaces or resources.
That's a great point. It democratizes the learning process in a way that wouldn't be possible otherwise.
Right. And it exposes you to a much wider range of styles, techniques, artistic visions.
So it sounds like both communities have their strengths.
Absolutely. It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about recognizing that they both offer valuable resources and connections.
So maybe it's about finding the right balance.
Yeah.
Attending a film photography workshop one weekend, then participating in an online critique session the next.
Exactly. It's about creating a personal experience that draws from the richness of both worlds.
Finding your tribe, whether that's in a dark room or on a digital platform.
And ultimately, I think that brings us back to the heart of this whole film versus digital debate. It's not really about crowning a winner. It's about appreciating the unique qualities of each medium and how they can complement each other.
It's about expanding our creative possibilities, not limiting them.
Exactly. It's a conversation, not a competition.
It's about exploring different approaches to photography and finding the tools and the communities that empower us to tell our stories.
Beautifully put. And maybe this whole exploration will lead you to discover something new about yourself and your own creative vision.
That's the beauty of it. The possibilities are endless.
So go out there, explore, experiment, connect, and most importantly, have fun.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Happy shooting, everyone.